Hi, my name is Reed Silverne. The name of the show is Fed Pride. The reason it's called Fed Pride is because I'm a federal employee, retired, and proud of it. Today, for me, it's August 16th. For you, it's going to be any time in the next month. Consequently, anything I talk about is going to be very, very obsolete, which leads me to talk about things that are pretty vague and or irrelevant. And that way I can relate to people in the future, meaning you, because you are relating to me in the past, August 16th. So what's going on in the world for me? All kinds of things, although not very much domestically because Congress isn't there. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody will be doing anything, even if they could. However, a perusal of Fox News shows that everybody is shocked at Fox, as always, about Obama and this and that, and making his own law and doing his own thing, and everything else that the Republicans are, at least the Fox News Republicans, are always upset about. So, why am I talking about this? Well, in about a month, we should be coming to multiple crises, but not as bad as last year. Last year was the fiscal cliff. The Medicare was going to, payments were going to drop, and the doctors were going to go out of business and stop taking Medicare patients. Of course, that didn't happen. We were heading for a fiscal cliff in which there was going to be tremendous amount of debt. We're going to default on the debt, and the government is going to shut down, all these other things. What actually happened was everybody blinked, but especially the Republicans blinked. The Republicans allowed an increase to the income tax rate, which is their anathema. They, have this belief that if you cut the rates, the revenues will go up. Of course, life and history has proved that to be completely and totally untrue. But Fox News still has Mr. Laffer on 2 or 3 times a week, who has the Laffer theory that says that if you cut taxes, you make more money, which only happens for 2 weeks in the 1960 once in history. So basically, if you cut taxes, then revenues go down, deficits go up, unless you cut spending the same amount. Nobody's ever done that. Consequently, the Bush tax cuts, which took 10 years to come to full effect, just as a near depression hit, caused deficits to hit levels that had never been seen before since World War II. Basically, the deficit itself in 2008, or fiscal 2009, which was passed in 2008, led to 10.2% of GDP. And the great news is that in 2013, that has dropped to 4% of GDP. Average throughout recent history is 3.3. So basically, over the last 3 or 4 years, the Republicans have said we have to voucherize Medicare, we have to cancel Obamacare, we have to basically get rid of Social Security as we know it, and turn Social Security into a 401k program where they take money out of the payments that are going to current retirees. We borrow the money to cover them, and then we take that money and we put it in a 401k for you, and then the next time we have a recession, you lose everything, and you don't have a retirement, and you don't have Social Security. So the retirement system is completely bollocksed up through 401ks. The whole idea that you will save 5 or 7% a year so that you can have a livable retirement in your old age proved to be ridiculous, partially because Wall Street was pulling out 0.5 to 1% a year, which is a lot of the gains, and partially because when the market once every 10 years would go down by half, which it's done in around 1992 in one case, and then again in 2000, or no, 1999 to 2000 in one case, and then again in 2008, 2009, when it goes down 55 to 60%, people are squeezed and they have to borrow from their retirements, in which case they have not only lost what they lost, but they don't gain their principal back. So basically, the whole retirement system is not serving the public, and the public is more dependent on Social Security than ever. So there we have it. That was the Republican plan, and it had to be done because deficits were out of control. And of course, the reason they were out of control was because we had literally a liquidity crisis where trillions of dollars of value, home values, the stock market went down 55%, and that's $3 or $4 trillion right there. The actual value, commodities even went down, and there was a deflation occurring, which basically took cash out of circulation. So the Fed started putting money back into circulation off the books, and then there was a tremendous deficit covering increased people who were 62 going into Social Security as a substitute for working because they lost their jobs or they were going to lose their jobs. People getting COBRA, which is a substitute for your company medical care while you're out of work. Unemployment, food stamps, and everything else skyrocketed, including Medicare, because people were losing their health insurance and then going on Medicare if they were over 65. So this confluence of events just pulled themselves together to really massively increase the deficit in every way possible. So we had a situation. Now, everybody talks about the deficit being 16 or the debt limit being $16.2, $16.3 trillion. As a matter of fact, $5 trillion of that debt, of that national debt, doesn't really exist. That is Social Security Trust Fund, the federal employee retirement funds, just various funds that the government has put money into. So they're borrowing money to put money back into the government, which is there in the first place, for future liabilities. So the real debt, in other words, the debt that's either owned in bonds by the public, by the American public, or by the Chinese, the Japanese, the Arabs, and everybody else who has trade deficits, that is about $11.2 trillion. And that's between 74 and 77% of GDP. That seems pretty high, but Greece was well over 100, 120, 130. Japan's 200%. And the most stable advanced country in the world today, which is Germany, has a national debt about 75% of GDP. So basically, things got worse on the debt front, but they didn't become disastrous. And the good news is I have a copy of the CBO report, and the CBO report is very, very clear that the deficit is dropping, and the deficit in terms of GDP is stabilizing. And in fact, it will be stable for the next 10 years. So the net deficit is going to be about 77% in 2023, which is 11 years or 10 fiscal years away, and it's 74% next year, or actually in 2014 when it hits its bottom, and about 77% last year. So basically, we have stabilized our deficit. Does that mean we still have a deficit? Yes, it does. However, things have improved. Why have they improved? They improved because of the fiscal cliff disaster. Out of the fiscal cliff disaster, the high income tax rate was raised, a bunch of loopholes were closed, and as a result, the revenues are going up to 19.2% of GDP. If we could get our outlays down to 20%, everything would be hunky-dory, or if we could get our outlays or our revenues up to 21%, which they really haven't been in the past. Revenues have averaged 17.9% of GDP, and outlays have been around 21%. The good news, or the even better news, and the bad news for the Republicans, is that in 2015, which is the year before, and it'll be the last year on record when Democrats run again for president, the deficit will be down to $378 billion. While that seems high, that's a lot lower than $1,900 billion, or $1.9 trillion, which was the last budget passed and signed by George W. Bush in 2008 for the 2009 fiscal year. So what does this all mean? Well, it kind of takes the wind out of the sails and is making the Tea Party more desperate than ever. The whole concept that the Tea Party had was that taxes were too high, even before they just raised them. And that was choking this recession and choking this recovery. Of course, this was a recovery not from a recession. This was a recovery from a liquidity crisis, the like of which we have never had since 1929. However, before Glass-Steagall was canceled, we used to have these every 10 or 15 years. Literally, depressions that would hit the country for 2 to 3 years, sometimes 4 or 5, and leave millions of people out of work and starving and desperate. So what happened in 2008 was once common. Of course, 1929 was a confluence of the worst possible events, complete collapse of commodity prices, freezing up of liquidity, while the government was cutting down, not bringing up more spending. And that led to, of course, the Great Depression, which was 25% apparent unemployment, probably 50% total unemployment. So what's been happening now? Well, this last week, the new filings for unemployment is down to below 320,000. This is the lowest level since 2005 and 6, during the highest boom. We've been creating 160 to 200,000 jobs every month. New jobs over and above all the layoffs. So layoffs are almost, gone, or very, very low. Some people quit. Some people, have a problem here or there, and they end up filing for unemployment, or they get laid off. However, mass layoffs are a thing of the past. There's more and more job security. Spending is up. And the other good news is that housing prices are almost recovered, except in Nevada and Florida, which had the biggest defaults and the biggest disasters. So housing is coming back, debt is going down, and why do we need to cut food stamps to bits? Why do we need to privatize Social Security and turn it into a 401k program? After all, Wall Street's done such a great job with our savings. It took us 13 years from the top in 1999 to actually meet that top again in 2013. So we've had a situation where we have not had any gain in the stock market, any real gain in the stock market, for 14 years. So that's how great our financial gurus are. And of course, we want to take Social Security, well, I want to take that feeling of security, not just for the old people that need it, but for their children and their grandchildren who would otherwise be supporting the older people. So basically, part of this, destruction of the middle class or whatever you want to call it, program was, that the Tea Party had was necessitated by this gigantic deficit, this deficit that is disappearing. The other thing that's looming, if you listen to the talk shows and watch Fox News and other things, is this looming inflation. Of course, the looming inflation is not happening, mostly because labor rates, income is not really going up, which is too bad, but that's the way it is. And basically, because of structural problems, because manufacturing is up to the highest level it's been, above the top of the last boom, but the number of workers is less. So the productivity has just skyrocketed, and that's because of robotics and increased efficiency. So basically, where they had 50 people making a car, now they have one person pressing a button and letting it go down a roboticized line with another engineer making sure that something's not going wrong or seeing if there's an improvement that could be made. So we're having a situation where there's fewer and fewer people making more and more goods. We solved that problem once by going to service economy. So that 67 or 70% of the jobs are based on consumer spending and are in stores and in grocery stores and Walmarts and mom and pops and specialty stores and entrepreneurship and all this other stuff, software and everything else. However, a lot of that is now going to the internet. The internet is basically, when you really think about it, roboticized sales. So how many record stores are there out there? Almost none. You can get your records online. How many art supply stores? There's a few, fewer than there were even in Tucson just a few years ago. And people don't buy there, they go online. So same thing with video stores. There used to be a video store in every strip mall. Video club, video store, specializing in old movies, specializing in classics, specializing in foreign movies. There was always somebody who was a movie geek that you could talk to, and he would tell you Casablanca is one of the great movies of all times, or this movie that just came out is real schlock, or whatever. Now there's Netflix. You either go online and you watch it online, it streams directly to you, or you have it mailed to you and you mail it back. So, or there's even Redbox, a video vending machine, although that seems to be kind of going out of style. So basically, a lot of services are being roboticized. A lot of services are being made efficient, but not with human beings on the loop. So there's fewer and fewer workers serving a larger and larger audience. So what's the solution to that? Well, part of the solution to that is that if we go to anything resembling full employment, don't forget that the last two times we've had full employment, during the dot-com boom and during the housing boom of the 2000s, were both phony booms that caused collapses. Over 50% drops in the stock market, and gigantic, at least in the 2008 recession, gigantic drops in the commodity markets as well. So basically, credit ballooning, jobs being created, phony jobs being created in one industry or another, followed by collapses with mass unemployment and mass disruption and mass suffering. So now we're having a real recovery, and the kind of recoveries that we needed to have, and we haven't had for the last 20 years. We have a recovery that's very slow, that's not inflationary, that only is bringing in new jobs as new jobs are required, and that's not being caused by an incredible bubble in credit. And I have proof here because the total credit in the United States is actually down, not up. So during the booms, mortgage credit, the number of mortgages being taken out, the total amount of household credit always skyrockets, and usually does skyrocket. At the very, very top of the last boom, which is the third quarter of 2008, there was over $9 trillion of mortgage debt. That is down to 7.8. So basically, mortgage debt is down $1.2 trillion. Partially, people have walked away. Partially, people have sold their houses and then bought another house with a lower mortgage and lower debt. The only debt that is really continuing to skyrocket and is going up in terms of real dollars and going up in terms of defaults or 90-day late payments is student loan debt. And student loan debt is going to be a problem. Mortgage debt default, meaning 90 days delinquent or more in payments, has gone from 9% to below 5% between 2009, the top of the recession, and now. Credit card debt has dropped from 14% below to below 10%. Student loan debt has gone up, however, from about 8% to a top of 12 and starting to trend down again. So what does all this mean? What it means is that we are finally, for the first time in at least 20 years, and probably 30 years, because the previous boom of the 80s resulted in the savings and loan collapse and another collapse in the stock market, although not as bad as the dot-com collapse and this latest collapse. We haven't had a real boom or a real recovery in over 20 years, or since the 1990s, in 25 years. What we have had are bubbles of credit, with the idea that if we just give everybody cheap credit, cheap mortgages, cheap 10 credit cards, they will spend our way out of the last recession and not create a new recession because things have changed. However, they don't change. And now we are having a recovery where the total household debt has dropped $1.73 trillion. The total debt to the nation has dropped 12% from the top of the local depression. Usually, the recoveries result in higher debt because we push money out into the public and to get them to spend. So this is actually what a recovery looks like. We don't know what it looks like because we haven't had a recovery in 25 years. We have only had bubbles, and bubbles that led to disaster. So actually things are getting better, and that's not good for the Tea Party because they need to justify lower taxes and a reduction in services and safety. Thank you very much. My name's Reed Silverne. Name of the show is Fed Pride.